Hungry Trilobyte podcast would like to start by acknowledging these fine conventions. SoonerCon. Central Oklahoma's longest-running pop culture convention is back. SoonerCon 31 is scheduled for June 30th through July 2nd, 2023, in Norman, Oklahoma. It promises a weekend full of tabletop gaming, cosplay, and appreciation for literary sci-fi as well as TV and comics. Visit SoonerCon.com for more information. The Hellmouth Convention. The Hellmouth Convention is designed by fans for fans, with the aim of harnessing the power of fandom to raise money for charities. The Hellmouth Convention celebrates all fandoms, but particularly things like Buffy, Firefly, and Dr. Horrible. Like the Hellmouth itself, things gravitate toward it that you may not find anywhere else. The next event is scheduled for June 9th through 11th, 2023, in Los Angeles, California. On tap today, we have Stanley Livingston. How are you doing today, good sir?
I'm doing great, and how are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. I'm looking forward to talking to you because you have an esteemed career in the TV film industry, starting with, as everybody's well aware, My Three Sons and going from there. And as somebody who's always liked classic TV, I really, really dig that.
Well, I lucked out on that show. Actually, my career began almost 5 years before My Three Sons, so which everything led up to My Three Sons early in my career. Yeah, I started as an extra, as most actors do. I went to a swimming school in Hollywood. There was an agent there, and she talked my mom into representing me and thought I'd make a good candidate to be a child actor. And yeah, my mom finally said okay. But yeah, I went on interviews, but they were basically for extras. And that happened for a little while. And then I got cast as an extra on Ozzie and Harriet about 1956, beginning of 57. And for whatever reason, Ozzie took a shine to me and actually gave me a line of dialogue. And I did it, and I guess I did it well enough. He told my mom, leave your contact information with my secretary in the front office. We did, and 2 months later, I was doing another one, and then another one, and between I'd say beginning of 57 to 1960, I probably did about 15 Ozzie and Harriets. I started doing movies. I was in an early version of Bonnie and Clyde movie. It was called The Bonnie Parker Story with Dorothy Provine. I did another film with Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward called Rally Around the Flag Boys. I did another film with Doris Day and David Niven called Please Don't Eat the Daisies. And I did a TV pilot for Jackie Cooper, which the reel that I had afterwards of my work on that particular pilot led to me being cast in My Three Sons.
I'd known about some of that, but not nearly half of it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I did quite a bit of work actually before My Three Sons, guest spots on TV and stuff. But
and I'm not here to I like, it's just I got into your work through My Three Sons because I remember watching that from when I was a little kid when it was in reruns. Ozzie and Harriet I missed, I admit that. But this is the kind of stuff I dig because I'm fascinated by how the industry is different now compared to the way it was when I was a kid and now with the way it was when you were working. Things have changed so much, and it's hard to get a grasp on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends what part of the industry you're referring to that's changed. I mean, the output, the types of shows and how they're made, and the type of programming is certainly different. I think the processes, especially for actors, are pretty much the same. There's a little technology involved in it now for actors if you want to become involved, but it's literally the same thing it's been since the beginning of the industry. You have to go somewhere to learn how to become an actor. That's either at a mom and pop school, or you go to college or a university or junior college and take classes, or you go to Yale or Harvard and come out of Yale Drama School. So, that's part of what's required of an actor is to know, what they're doing and have those skills either on stage or in front of a camera so that you know how it all works. There's this other part. It's kind of this big mystery that's not taught by most of these schools, at least not taught in a comprehensive way, And it's the other component if you're going to become an actor, which always bothered me that there really wasn't any kind of professional school or classes or information available to actors. And that's on the non-performance skills. It's what you do when you're between jobs to learn how to get work and to decipher what you're being told by casting directors and producers and your agent and your manager that are in the beginning of your career a complete mystery, and you don't understand it. You don't understand why you're not getting work. Actually, I tried to do something about that about almost 8 years ago. I created a program called the Actor's Journey Project. And what it was a program for actors. It's a 10-hour long program. It really demystifies the back end of the industry for actors, meaning the business side or non-performance skills needed to become an actor. What I did is I rounded up 100 people from our industry. They were all people who had worked in the industry a minimum of 20 years. 45, 50 of these people had either won, been nominated for Academy, Emmy, Golden Globe Awards. So it ensured that the information that was being disseminated to the new actors who are working now is from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And so, I feel like besides my 3 sons, that's my contribution to the industry. We had, it wasn't just actors telling other actors what to do. We did have quite a few actors, but it was also agents, managers, different people, showrunners, producers, directors. In fact, we had the president of the Directors Guild of America, the president of the Screen Actors Guild, and a lot of people that sat on the various boards at both of those organizations disseminating the information. So
I'm so glad you brought that up.
It's a big problem. It's a big problem. You can go spend $100,000 learning to act, and then it's like, okay, well, what do I do now? What's the first thing I do? Or this agent said this to me, and I have no idea what he's talking about. Or I did this on an interview, and now nobody wants to see me again. So we really tried to, allow people to see the forest in spite of the trees, I guess you could say.
Now, on your website, you're saying that this is going to be transitioning from DVD-based to streaming-based. Has that transition happened yet?
No, I'm still in the midst of it. It'll come up shortly. We're dealing with Vimeo, Vimeo isn't what they used to be either. Everything evolves. About a year ago, when I talked to them, you could actually get a rep on the phone and discuss. It's mainly technical issues of how we want to do something with what they have or what they offer. So we're just trying to find ways to work around it to set this up so it's seamless for us at this end. But ultimately what will happen is the media that we have, which comprises this 10-hour program, will be up, and you can watch it all, or it's in 8 big gulps, I guess you could say. It was originally an 8-volume DVD. And each of the volumes was about 90 minutes long. And, it's soup to nuts, from even things you need to think about before you do all this, if we can catch those people, maybe even before they've gone to acting school. I mean, the industry isn't really what most people perceive it is, especially, people who are not from LA or outside the industry. It looks different than what it is. I mean, basically, I don't want to say this in a derogatory way, but you're signing up for a factory job. The factory job is the sound stage. And like in the old days when people went down in the coal mine, you're going to be required to show up somewhere between 5 and 6 in the morning. If you're an adult actor, they can keep you there 12 hours, sometimes longer if they want to pay you overtime. And that does happen. And then you have to be right back on the set again in as little as 8 hours, what they call a turnaround time. And, I think a lot of people aren't prepared. They have this vision of glamour in their minds when they think of show business, that it's, a party or parties happening on the set, and it's all, a lot of fun. It isn't. It's a lot of waiting in between setups and takes while they set up the equipment. There's always rush because you're trying to get through your day and get anywhere from 4 to 10 pages done a day, depending on what level of shoot you're on. If it's a low budget, you're probably going to shoot 8, 9, 10 pages a day. If you're shooting on a big feature, it could be 3 or 4 pages, but you're going to do it over and over. If you work for somebody like David Fincher, you could have a 2-page scene, but you're going to shoot that scene maybe 40 or 50 or 100 times for him. And you're saying the same lines over and over. And, your thought in your head, even though you're doing your work and you're intimidated by working with somebody like that, is what the hell's going on? Why do I have to do this so many times? But there's a method to his madness, but I won't get into that here. But yeah, and even like I was saying, that people don't really realize there is a whole business aspect to this. And I think it's surprising because they get a smattering of it, when you go to school. But what most actors leaving college think is that the business is get a resume, get a headshot, and a headshot is different than what it used to be because you're submitting that electronically now. But you really need to think about that too. In the old days, you'd have a headshot. It was an 8x10. Your agent would send it in, and the casting person would look at this nice 8x10 and decide if you were right for the part, meaning physically right. And then an interview would be set up. Well, now it comes electronically, and they may get 100 submissions, and you're looking at photos that are not much bigger than your thumbnail, ahead. So, really thought has to be put into that shot. How do I stand out amongst a page with 100 pictures on it if they're only looking at a thumbnail? So, there's things you really need to think about, even as far as that. So, you need your resume, your headshot. If you have a reel because you did some things in college or even things outside of college that you managed to get the file and can create a reel out of it, that's important. And at some point, though, once that's submitted, it goes back to the old system that they're going to want to meet you. And besides having done maybe a self-submission of how you believe the dialogue or that character presents himself, they want to come in and meet you and see what your personality is like and throw you a curveball, maybe. It's like, hey, you did great, and we like the way you did the character, but let's put the script down. And we know it's a 3-page scene, but we want you to improvise this from scratch. Ready? Go. It can be that crazy. And if you're not ready for that, you can go blank. You don't know what's being required of you. So, like I said, we were trying to prep people to learn ahead of time what goes on in that room. And that's probably the most important element to actors, besides having gone to acting school. But on the business side, is being able to go on an audition or an interview and be able to survive it, and do what's required and not be thrown, a curveball, and be able to respond immediately and do a good job. Most actors, and I mean, this goes back to the beginning of time, are completely intimidated by the audition process. And I'm talking about even seasoned actors. And, I think new actors have the perception too, that it's just them that this is all being put upon. But, actors or Academy Award winning actors, big actors, they all vie for the part, and not all of them, get hired. Some do. There's some actors that are at that level and have done so many films that they just get an offer from the producer. We want you, what's your rate? $20 million. Okay. But there's actors in between, or actors have kind of gone up and down, and they're required to audition too. And, it's harder for them, because when you're new, you're probably going on more interviews than somebody who's got a name, because half the parts do come to you. But when you're required to audition, I always tell people, and that's one of the things we explain to people in the actor's journey too, is look, don't be afraid of these auditions. It's the most important thing you need to learn, because if you can't audition, you'll never get a part. Somehow you have to conquer your fear of that. You've got to be able to get in there and become comfortable with it. That's the most important thing, even more important sometimes than getting the job, is knowing how to do that. Because even if you go in and you do a good job, sometimes you're just not right for the part. They still allow you to read, and you never get any feedback that, oh yeah, well, we already hired the guy who's playing your brother and he's got red hair. We need another actor with red hair. And something that's stupid or simple doesn't get back to you. You know, they don't take the time to tell you, well, sorry, you're really good, but we're really looking for somebody with red hair because we've hired somebody and we need to match them up. There's a lot of things, reasons actors don't get parts, and that's nothing to do with what they did in the room or how talented they are. But you need to know that, or you can go crazy wondering what the hell's going on. And makes it a lot smoother, you know, for you to proceed on to the next level of auditioning. So I'm a big proponent of that. Another reason why too is just when auditions happen, you really don't know. Like I said, if you're right for the part, and you're there to get the part, of course, but more important, you're there to impress the people that are in that room, be it a producer, a director, the casting director. Sometimes they even have the star of the movie there. And you may not be right, but your job is to impress them, so that even if you're not right and didn't get that part, they're going to think about you, you know, a week from now, a month from now, and say, hey, remember the guy that came in that wasn't right? Well, he's right for this. Get him back here. So, you know, that's why it behooves you to know what you're doing and not screw up and not get too upset about it, because there's always that chance you will be seen again if you do a good job. Anyway, that's some of the stuff we're trying to impart. And I was doing this orally to people and new actors that I knew, you know, my whole life. But I kind of wanted to put it into a program so it's out there and available in some sort of format where actors have access to it, no matter what part of the country they live in. You know, if this is your chosen profession or you think it is, you're going to need this. It's not enough just to have the acting thing, because you're going to find out if you have an acting career like I did that runs about 65 years, if you took everything I ever did, all the movies, all the TV shows, and even if you filmed all the stage plays and put them on a reel, yeah, you're going to find out maybe you have like 4 months worth of work that you can project, or 5 months, maybe 6 months if you really worked a lot. And the other 64 and a half years, you were looking for work and employing your skills, your non-performance skills to get that work. So that's why that's an important aspect.
I want to thank you so much for that, because this is insanely valuable. First of all, I'm going to put your page and this course on the show notes of my website, aaronbossig.com, because this is something I really think people who are getting creative now need to have from all the voices that are involved in it. One of the reasons I feel so strongly about this is we have this new breed of creatives now who just now have been given these brand new tools, and they're trying to reinvent the wheel in terms of what they can do in entertainment. And that's great. But it's like they're also trying to reinvent the wheel on the business end of things, and that doesn't work quite as well.
Well, that's what we were trying to do, and I always say this is part of what I talk about when I talk about this particular program. It's absurd, at least from an acting point of view, that each actor should be forced to reinvent the same wheel. You know, just because he has no connections in the industry, maybe supremely talented, but this other information just doesn't come easy. It's almost like it's hidden from actors for whatever reason. Like I said, there's never been a comprehensive program to my knowledge. But you know, if you have this information right at the outset, you can hit the ground running, as opposed to, you know, stumbling and bumbling around for 2 or 3 years trying to learn this stuff and try and learn the industry piece by piece. And as you said, reinventing the wheel. Anyway, we're trying to put an end to that. This is the wheel.
Right. The wheel exists for a reason, and you might want a different wheel. We can talk about that. But at the end of the day, if you're going to work with other people, you all need to have the same plan as to how things get done. And it doesn't make any sense to change things without a benefit to everybody involved.
Yeah. And even though there is a wheel, I always say this too, that, you know, the people that want to become actors and make their way into the industry, even though ultimately we all end up doing the same thing, and this is the wheel and this is the information, every actor takes a completely different path to that same point. You know, it's just, you know, it's like some actors, you know, they walk in and they're like, wow, where you been? You're perfect. You're hired. Other actors, you know, go on 100 interviews and never get a job, but they finally do. So I always say, look, you don't know how you're going to get into the industry. For some people, they luck out and it happens and the door opens and they walk right in and they're hired. Hopefully that's you. But for 99.9% of the people, that doesn't happen. You got to find your own way in, be it through a door, through a window, coming down the chimney, up through the floorboards, any way you can find to get in that's creative. And, you know, as long as you're not an obnoxious person, you know, but it teaches you about creativity too. You know, there is a path, but don't be afraid to go off the path, you know, and find another path in. That's just how crazy this industry is. So, but you know, there's limits to that. You need to know what those limits are too.
Indeed, I had somebody talking to me about a month ago about their idea for, you know, their project, and I'm not going to name names or give any specifics, but they are saying to me, well, you know, I've got this great idea and I've got a basic setup and I can use my cell phone to make videos on YouTube, and that's going to be my in. And I said, that's great if it works, but there's a whole bunch of things you could be doing to help yourself that you're not talking about. You should be working with community theater, going to get an actual education, and just making these contacts now. Even if you don't use them, making them is never a bad thing.
Well, that's why we say the acting business is a contact sport. And yes, you know, that's really what you want to do. That's why you want to be in class, because you're probably going to be in it with 25 other actors. And somebody in that class is, you know, going to go up the food chain faster than you know, and if you know these people, they tend to pull the people along who they knew. And if they have any kind of power or influence at all, that happens all the time. I'll give you an example of that. And this is one of the examples that's in the actor's journey, but I don't mind giving it away. And I'm going to use my own brother, Barry Livingston, you know, who was Ernie on My Three Sons. And in his own right, you know, he was a pretty big child actor even before he came to My Three Sons. Did a lot of movies and TV shows, but happened to be around at the right time when Tim Considine, the older brother, left the show. And he had already worked on there a couple times as a friend. And, you know, they ended up working him into the storyline where the Douglas family adopted him. So he went from being, you know, a recurring character to a full-time, you know, member of the family and a full-time actor on that show. But flash forward later, my brother's, you know, done a lot of hard work and learned the business. And you know, really, it's all about doing whatever comes your way too. You can't have any preconceived notions. There's a lot of actors that are told by their agents or managers, look, you shouldn't do commercials, they're really not good because they could derail your career you have going in TV or the movie industry. But that's not true. So here's what happened to Barry. Barry does everything. He goes out, doesn't matter if it's a commercial, an industrial, a TV show, whether it's one line, top of the show, a movie. So he got a call to go in on it was a Heineken commercial. And, you know, like I said, some agents go, you shouldn't do these. And Barry, you know, we have a different take on it. So he did, went in on the audition. He got a call back, got another call back, which is really irritating when you have to do that, but that's part of what you have to do. And he got hired. So he gets to the set and he's in makeup, and the assistant director comes up to him and says, Barry, have you met the director yet? And Barry said, no. And he said, have you got the sides? And Barry goes, well, yeah, no, I learned my lines. He goes, well, no, that wasn't the script. Here's the real script. The other was just kind of a fictitious thing we were doing. So Barry goes, okay. So he kind of looked at it and goes, oh, crap, you know, I got to learn more lines and what's going on here. So the assistant director said, well, follow me. I want you to meet the director. So Barry goes out on the set, and there's the director. Says, Barry, this is David. David, this is Barry. Well, it wasn't David. It was David Fincher, the director. Fight Club, you know, all the movies he's done, you know, Zodiac, Social Network. So you're meeting, you know, an A-list director is going to be directing you in this commercial. And then the director said, the assistant director said, have you met Brad yet? And they said, no. So he said, well, come with me. You might as well meet him right now. So they went outside to a motorhome, knocked on the door. Somebody answered. Barry came in, and the assistant director said, Barry, this is Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt, this is Barry Livingston. He's the other guy that's going to be in the commercial with you. And he stood there and talked for about 10 minutes. Anyway, turned out it was a top secret Heineken commercial that was being made with Brad Pitt for the Super Bowl. and it ran only once, and then it played in Europe and played in Japan. After that, just like on regular TV. But those are the kind of things that can happen. But to continue the story, about a year later, Barry went on another commercials for Orville Redenbacher popcorn. Walks in the office after looking at the sides, and who's sitting behind the desk? David Fincher. Who gets the part? Barry. And then I guess it was about a year later, a script arrived at his house, and on the front of it was said part of Mr. Cox, and it was circled. And then he looked down, and it was David Fincher's production company. So that's a reason you want to go do commercials. That's a reason you want to go out and meet people and make contacts, because you never know how those contacts are going to manifest themselves and somehow have an effect on your career. So yeah, Barry also did another movie with David. It was the Zodiac. So yeah, magic can happen.
It can, and it will happen. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen because you put yourself in the vicinity of it. Sitting around and waiting for it to come to you has a very, very low success rate.
Yes, that's why you want to go out. You want to socialize, but in a sort of special way. I mean, you don't go to these events or anything you can get to and get bombed, get drunk. You've got to be socially correct there, because there's a lot of people, and believe me, these people are picky. If they see you doing anything, give them any reason not to invite you into the audition room, your career's over before it began. So you really have to have your act together. And like I said, it sounds social, when you be going it's actually a business event, and that's the way you have to approach it. But if you're polite and aggressive but polite, people they like that. They don't want people who are shy and sit in the corner, but they don't want people who come and attach themselves and glom on to somebody. Won't let them alone for the rest of the evening either. So you really have to use your common sense, but to let people know you're there. And but on the other hand, I'm all for people making their own break, by maybe making a movie, even if it is with your iPhone, because that, to me, being an actor, it's like having an Indian, I want to say the word Indian, that's probably forget, having a bow and arrow clipper on your back, and that movie can be just one of your arrows. It's one of your arrows, and in your quiver. The other could be a stage play. The other could be the casting director you met at a social event the other night and exchanged cards or whatever. It's just all sorts of things that you have to get used to doing, and doing it in a business. And that's the key word here. We call it show business. It's actually show business. The last word is all in caps, to get that part across, so that you can get the chance to show your creativity as an actor. Because without that, you never will, or you will, but you may not last too long. I mean, there's actors that are pretty good at auditioning, but sometimes they make mistakes. I was talking to a casting director, and they had somebody they weren't real familiar with, but somehow he got on the audition, and he was for the part of the heavy. And there was a scene where he was trying to intimidate the star. That wasn't the dialogue. Well, he's doing the scene, and what does he do in the office? Pulls out a gun. I guess he was a method actor, scared the bejesus out of everybody in the room. And you don't do that. After it was over, the director turned to the casting person and said, I never want to see that person again. Don't ever bring them into a room with me again. And, unfortunately, that person's career was either over or severely diminished at that point. So you really have to learn the ropes, about what you can and can't do, and what's expected of you, and, where you don't want to tread.
Yeah, and I'm a huge advocate of independent filmmaking and trying to use the tools that have been democratized now to tell stories that we couldn't have told 20, 30 years ago before these tools were available. But with that, you kind of, and this is where your work is going to come in, you have to have the wherewithal to say, this is the latitude I have with this. If you're saying I'm going to make an iPhone movie in my bedroom, it's not realistic to think that's going to be an Oscar winner in 2 years. You just don't have that mentality. But if you
It isn't. But what it is a door opener. If you're looking to get into production, because nobody at the beginning of their career is expected to have a film shot in Panavision. So,
exactly.
people look and go, well, this guy was, and he's in it, and, so he knows a little bit, and it'll, it's a ladder. So you go up to the next rung because of that, as opposed to if you didn't do it at all. I mean, what kills most low budget films, I'm sort of a tech guy besides, well, like I said, I've had a production company for the last 40 years. So I've had to learn everybody's job. I'm an editor. I'm a sound guy. I'm a camera guy. I learned how to edit when we were using moviolas, then chem tables, and then finally linear editors and non-linear editors. So, I learned when we were shooting with film cameras, how to do that, all the lab processes and procedures. So the digital age has made it a lot easier. And, and I mean, just to own something where you can shoot something, even if it is an iPhone, I mean, probably an iPhone 14. I think it's shooting 4K, so visually it can be stunning. But it has to do not only with the camera, it has to do with the lighting. But what kills most, low budget efforts off is the sound. People are capturing the sound on their iPhone, and man, you can't do it. And if you look at a lot of low budget films, the sound is tinny, or it's just horrible. But the worst thing you can have is even better picture, where you have 4K or almost a film-like quality to it and have crappy sound. I mean, it totally ruins your movie. So there is that other aspect of it where you need not to go down to Radio Shack and get a microphone. You need to buy a real mic. And I'm not talking about a $200 or $500 mic. You need to go in and buy a $2,500 mic made by Sheps. SHOEPS. And when you hear the sound coming out of that, you'll know why all the studios require that mic. You also, need to have some way to capture that sound, and you don't want to capture it in your iPhone. You need a separate system. It needs to go through a mixer. It needs to be digitally recorded. Maybe on something like Sound Designs makes great mixers. And that's got to be a whole separate other element. And you need another guy to do that. You can't, if you're the camera guy, you can't be the guy to run sound. So, and even the boom man, I don't know how many productions I've worked on where it's got, the sound guy is pretty good, and I sort of trusted him. But you look at the boom man, and the mic is off axis. It's pointed like 6 inches away from the guy's mouth. I remember I used to walk around and take my finger and push the mic back around. I go, that mic needs to be right there. If you're off over here, and then I would show them why. I go, hey, say your line, and say the line, and I push the mic over just 6 inches, and you can hear the difference of off-axis, sound coming through the microphone. It doesn't sound the same. So that's a laborious job. You're standing there, while takes are going, holding this, 14-foot pole up with a fairly heavy mic on the one end. Fortunately, now a lot of the sound transmission goes through a transmitter, so at least it helps balance the weight off. But you've got to be totally alert where that mic's pointed. If you flinch for a second, the actor could turn, and you didn't turn with him. So there's all kinds of, that's why I say you just got to do this stuff. That's why you get involved. You get involved at every level. I don't care if you're an actor. I'm a big believer, and you should know everything about cameras. You should know about sound, what makes good recordings, why they light a certain way. Just everything you can learn behooves you.
And how many of those editors go on to have other roles in the film production? How many actors become directors? How many directors become producers? You don't get that latitude unless you start to bone up on the basics everywhere across the board.
Yeah, you need to learn it, and you need to improve every time. I did a movie, probably it was a year or two after My Three Sons, and I think it was around 74, called Private Parts. It was done by a director named Paul Bartel. Was actually his first film. He had a couple of shorts he did that were really good. I saw them, and I got hired. It was a film by Gene Corman, Roger Corman's brother, also was a filmmaker. And anyway, yeah, the film, when it came out, well, there's reasons why it didn't go into. They should have never used the title "Private Parts." It was kind of a bad idea if you wanted to market the film at the time. But it got a rave review by Judith Crist in New York. Paul was touted as kind of a budding Alfred Hitchcock, but the film looked really good. And the guy that was the cinematographer and did all the lighting on it was a guy named Andrew Davis. And he was a DP back then and did a lot of films. Well, that's the same Andrew Davis that went on and, did all these films by Steven Seagal, what do you call it? Sylvester Stallone, action movies, a lot of action movies. He did The Fugitive with Harrison Ford. So he went on to become a director. So, yeah. And be nice to people too, because you don't know where they're going to end up. There's plenty of people, whether they're actors or I remember when I did Ozzy Inherit, I never gave it a thought because I was just a kid. But the guy who was the focus puller went on and became a huge cinematographer, and then later a DP. Later a director. So yeah, some of these jobs transfer into other areas of the industry. His name was William Fraker. You can look him up. He did some incredible work.
We'll absolutely put him in the show notes too. One of the best lines.
What he did on Ozzy and Harriet was pull the tape out and used to hold it against my nose so they could get the focus right. He was the focus puller back in those days. So,
one of the best lines I ever heard was, the people you meet on your way up are the same people you're going to meet on your way down. And that's something that's guided me ever since I was 12 years old.
Exactly. I can't tell you how many times that's happened with me. And, if you're on your way back down, I don't think about that at all. It means nothing to me. It's this person did their work and they're good. And, maybe you just had a dry spell and couldn't get any work, or you did 2 or 3 movies that didn't click. So the industry kind of clicks you down a couple notches, mainly so they can offer you less money next time you work. But yeah, it's, the person's good. If you're in the industry, it's your job to know who's good and who isn't.
Yeah. And me personally, I find these kinds of conversations more rewarding than anybody who's just hot right now. For this reason, I want to talk to somebody who's, their work has stood the test of time and they have a perspective on what really works and what doesn't. And that's exactly what you're getting at here. So I want to thank you so much for this.
Oh, yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, it's hard to, sometimes get actors redirected and focused on this other area that they need to know. And I understand it. We all just want to be in front of a camera, up on stage, being creative and doing the part of it that's fun to us. This other thing is kind of a drag, but like I said, it really behooves me to say this, but that colleges and universities have not put programs together or brought people in really here's the problem. The people that are teaching acting at universities or junior colleges or just regular colleges, they were probably people trying to get into the entertainment industry themselves and may have met with a little bit of success, and for whatever reason it didn't work out. They have degrees in theater arts or in cinema, and they fell back on that, and 20 years later that's their career. So they really never got steeped in this whole other side, and how deep it is to understand what you're going to have to do when you become an actor on the other side of the camera, meaning behind the scenes. And so they can't teach it. That's why I rounded up the group I had. I knew all these people had worked in the industry 20, 30 years, got their asses kicked, especially in the beginning, and somehow found creative ways to get around it and ultimately have successful careers. So, what we were trying to do is provide access to people who've had successful careers. Best thing you can do is learn from them, because obviously they did something different and it manifested itself in a career. So that's an important thing. And like I said, there's resistance from actors to have anything to do with this business part. They say, hey, I'm a great actor, I'll be discovered. Yeah, well, good luck.
Yeah, that'd be nice, but I don't know of a single job on the face of the earth that doesn't have some component that you have to do, but would rather not if you'd had a choice in the matter.
Well,
That's just, yeah,
yeah, that's true. I mean, in almost every industry, it's not just the movie industry and the acting industry. That's a two component industry. Try opening a restaurant because you know how to cook and you're a great chef, but know nothing about the restaurant business and how to order food and how not to get shut down by the health department. It's a two component industry, and that's the part that's hidden and nobody talks about, nobody teaches. It's very, very hard to find out. You need to talk to somebody who owns a restaurant. You can always find a good chef. It's hard to find somebody to manage the business that knows the ins and outs of it, so you don't get shut down or you don't poison people or whatever. Being a pilot, how would you like to fly with somebody who loves flying, maybe has a feel for it, but never took ground school? Good luck.
indeed. Well, Stanley, I am going to send anybody who voices an interest in this sort of stuff your way because I really think you're offering a valuable thing. And I want to thank you so much for being here. I'll put
It's my pleasure.
your course and your website in the show notes. Is there any other place I could send people to follow your adventures?
Well, I have a personal website for people that are, fans of My Three Sons, or like I said, I have about probably 67 years in the industry as an actor, with the last 30 being in back of the camera with a production company. If you want to list, and I'm also an artist, believe that or not. I had to find something to do in my spare time, especially with COVID. And it's funny because I never knew why I did that, but I learned how to become a pretty good and a professional artist. I mean, I've sold literally probably about 1,000 paintings over the course of my life. But being on a soundstage when I was a kid and a teenager, not being able to make noise, led me to start painting, and I got good at it. I actually have a website up that features my art. It's an online gallery, and I sell paintings from there regularly. But yeah, if you put my name in, StanleyLivingston.com, that's my personal website. But if you go to StanleyLivingstonArt.com, I have an online gallery. And I also have a production company website for when we're up and running. I'm holding off 2 more months to come back because of COVID, but it's firstteamproductions.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I would be glad to have you back anytime. This has been a true pleasure.
Yeah, anytime you want me, or you got questions about that stuff, or want to get deeper into it and some stories behind the thing. If you do put something about the actor's journey, I don't want people to be disappointed. So tell them it's in the process of being built. Should be, what are we at? It should be up around, I'm thinking somewhere in December between the 1st and 15th.
That's fair enough. I will take you up on that.
Thanks so much, Aaron. It's really good talking to you.